All right, Dhruv, we're going to start to do some analysis of Watkins Glen, your laps, which unfortunately you didn't have quite a few laps, but uh, we're going to start off with turn one. The sector is basically the end of the front straight all the way to the end of the back straight, at least I call it, or up to the bus stop. So first thing I'm going to do is watch videos side by side. You can reference this, on your own. I'll play them side by side here. My lap is on the left. My lap is blue throughout this video, and your lap is red over here. So I'll go ahead and play those together. Right, as you can see on the back straight, we both had some drafts. You end up having to slow down early because you had traffic right before the bus stop. Um, it's not going to play a big factor into this because that's just at the end. There is another lap that you have turn one a little bit better, but we'll get into that also. The biggest thing I noticed from the video is that actually on the right side back here, when you're in the brake zone, I've noticed you're doing this thing where you shake the wheel left and right. Um, Probably not a huge deal, but if you were braking at the maximum limit possible, that shaking the wheel could cause a lockup. If you think about the friction circle, if you're all the way at the top of it, basically under braking, and then you move the wheel, you coming out of the circle per se. You tend to do that on most of the brake zones. I'm not sure what that is, if that's really necessary or that's a nervous system thing, but it's not really necessary. So I'll play it right here. You can see your hands move back and forth a little bit. It's different on different laps, but on this one, and then go back one. Of course. Yeah, so on that one, maybe three times you shake it back and forth. Sometimes it's worse on other ones. Something to think about. I'm not sure where that's coming from, but I would try as you improve to, work that out. If you notice on mine, I mean, I pretty much just keep the wheel straight, and I checked Adams and Max videos as well, and they're keeping it straight also. So I don't think it's the car. I think it's just something you have a tendency towards doing. So that's one thing that I would work on. All right, so what we're gonna do is first we're gonna take a look at these graphs. I'm not sure how familiar you are with them, but I will kind of start as if you have no familiarity, but I'm sure you probably do. So at the top, we have the engine RPM. In the middle, we have the speed. And then at the bottom, we have the time comparison. The time comparison one, lower is better, I guess you could say. So you can see the blue line keeps dropping, dropping, dropping. That is like basically me getting faster than you per se, the distance gap. So at the end, you caught traffic here, but at the end, the difference of this one sector was 1 second. So that's 1 second in one little section there. Yeah, so you can see in this time compare graph, a lot of the differential is just right in here, which is basically mid corner. Once through the corner, I'm still pulling away just a little bit, but it's very gradual. And with the draft and slight deviations from being behind the other cars, that's kind of negligible. But we're going to focus on this section here, braking and getting through the corner. So one thing I look for, or generally you should look for in a speed trace, is the angle going through the corner. By angle, I mean, this is kind of a V shape. The faster the corner, the more U shape it should be, just in general. Obviously, there's a long straightaway after this corner, so a V shape would generally get you more. You basically slow down the beginning of the corner, and then you get on the gas, have more speed through the corner, and well, really on the exit of the corner, and you carry that speed all the way to the straightaway. So, looking at your trace, which is the red one, basically it's exactly what I was saying, but I end up carrying a little bit more speed through the corner. I have more of that U shape, but you can see your speed actually kind of catches up with me for a little bit there. So you can kind of see the differences. Now the thing is, when you when you put it all together, carrying a little bit more speed mid corner is actually faster for this section of track than trying to get that late apex and more of a brake turn than flat on the gas back out. If the corner was more like a second gear corner, I think it'd be a little bit different. I think your way would be a little bit better. But honestly, I mean, it looks like your graph is like fine. It's just really the overall speed. All right, looking at the beginning of the corner, I've added the brake pressure trace, which really helps see when you're on the brake. I don't have the throttle one in there right now. Uh, may use that for other things later, but basically, let's go back a little bit. So looking at the speed trace, yours red trace falls off just a little bit, where my blue one keeps going until about this point. So yours drops off here, mine about there. Um, one thing, yeah, your trace starts out lower because you just had a lower speed going in. But as you can see by the difference down here, the time compare, it's not a huge deal. You can still do analysis on it. So basically, since you start losing speed here a little bit, it looks like you may have just lifted off the gas because the uh, the braking starts at about the same time. All right, I just made a change real quick. So I did bring the throttle position in. So up top we got speed now, brake pressure, and then throttle position. Unfortunately, the throttle position graph is a little funky. It goes like full 7,000% when you lift off. So it's going to be a little confusing, but I've been able to kind of figure it out. So once again, talking about the speed, as we come up to the corner, your speed is dropping off a little bit. Why is it dropping off? Because throttle trace, it's kind of bouncy, but you're at full throttle and then lift, so it drops, it does this little lift here, and then when it goes straight up, that means you're completely off the gas. So right here, you're off the gas, which follows with the speed trace, and you don't hit the brake until this spot. So one other cool thing I can do is look at a map. All right, so zoom in a little bit. So right here is where you lift off, which you got to find something to associate with, but you see this line right here. And then if I move over to where you hit the brake, the line is way back here. So that whatever that distance is from here to here, that is how much you were just off throttle coasting, right? Now, this was your third lap. I mean, that's gonna happen, right? Like it's you're not gonna be going full out on your third lap, but it's what the data I got right now. And we will compare it to one of those other laps later on as well. Just quickly comparing that to my throttle and brake application. So looking down here, the blue trace, I get to here and then it goes completely off. And then literally just a few pixels later, I'm on the brakes already. So that section right there is one way you gain time by basically uh, never having a coasting action between brake and throttle in a brake zone. As far as braking pressure, we both actually brake about the same. After I do my downshift, I end up braking a little bit harder. And from what I remember, I believe I'm actually trying to stand it on the nose a little bit to get it to initially rotate in the corner. So if I look at the map on map, the video on mine, actually maybe not. I mean, this is right where I'm on the brakes the hardest. Uh, that's about right where I was turning in. Yeah, right as I was turning in there is where I was braking the hardest. So to get it to try to rotate. Looking at the throttle traces coming through the middle of the corner, picking up the throttle, we actually, if you look right here, the red and the blue go up at the same time. So we actually cut on the gas almost at the same time. But it looks like maybe you did lift off because it drops a little bit, and then slowly you pick it back up as yours goes that way, goes throughout the corner. Where mine, it seemed like I had a little bit more throttle. You got to take the throttle trace with a grain of salt. It's a little grainy, and I'm not sure its accuracy. So, um, it is what it is. But I think the big takeaway is generally your line through there is probably okay. A little bit of time on gas and brake, switching between the two, and then the overall, speed mid corner. If we look at let's see, your minimum was 60. I'm doing my minimum was 68. So 8 miles per hour through the middle of the corner. That's, quite a big difference. And you can see that's why on the time compare, you start dropping off there. Here, this is now your lap 15. Uh, Looking at the speed, you came across some traffic and had to slow up towards the end, but you are better through the first, half of this sector. Uh, so the things you did improve on, 10 or 12 laps later. So the red trace, you can see it right here. It drops off at this point, and then just right here. Wait, did I say brake? I meant throttle drops off at this point, and then brake picks up right there. So that's real good. Very, very minimal coasting. You do get on the brakes. You actually get on the brakes harder than I do. Um, Although you can still see for my blue trace here, I hit the brakes to get a little bit of rotation. Like I've hit them harder to get that turn in uh, initially into the corner. But looking at the speed graph, yeah, you can see you kind of you're carrying lower speed overall through the whole brake zone, and then but you do pick up the throttle sooner at this point, and your trace says it right here. I know it's hard to see, but I can see it. And then I pick up the throttle a little later. As we come to the rest of the corner, though, our speeds are almost matched. So once again, that's showing what, a late apex can do. And probably if the straightaway was really, really, really long, your speed would eventually get faster than mine. But because it's not long, I gain all this time right here in the braking and in the middle corner. And that's designated by the speed compare down here. So if I do a delta on that, so coming into the corner and going right there, difference is about a half second. I can't remember what it was in the other time frame, but just in that one little section, it's a half second. So, and basically you're only lost a little bit until you hit traffic. So it probably only would have been, 6/10 of a second for the whole sector as opposed to, I think the other one was like a whole second, right? So lap 15, you did have a better entry uh, into the corner and a, mid corner and exit. So you can see where you're losing the time. It's that mid corner speed. So um, it's just something you have to work your way up to. Try to uh, trust the amount of grip that the car has. All right, and just to show you the video comparison between your lap 15 right here, which is the lap you pitted, and my best lap. Here it is. You're on the right. I'm on the left. And of course, you caught traffic, so you had to lift there. Once again, though, you can see your hands under this braking, shaking the wheel. Something we gotta iron out there. All right, we're gonna move on to the next sector. We're gonna move on to the next sector, which is the end of the back straight, the bus stop, and the outer loop. On the map here, you can see coming down this way, back straight, bus stop, and outer loop. So we will go ahead and watch the videos side by side. Uh, so my best lap was from my second stint. Not my best lap. My best sector was from the second stint, and yours was lap 15. Actually, coincidence once again, it was the lap where you pitted. So here we go. We'll watch them. Now, through there, the yellow came out in the middle of the outer loop. I don't know if you actually lifted or anything because of that, but it is what it is. This is your best sector by a few tenths. So we'll go ahead and go with that. Okay, taking a look at the traces. Start off down here with the time compare. The blue line once again going down is means it's faster. If I do a delta between the start and the end of the sector, difference here is, wow, it's 2 seconds. So if you're wondering where a lot of the time is, this is probably one of the spots. So I'll take that back off. Now coming up to look at the speed, you can see definitely you slowed down earlier for the bus stop. We actually were coming into it almost the same, just half a mile per hour difference there. But slow down earlier and then kind of keep at this point right here, keep an kind of average looks like 6 mile per hour difference, through the whole rest of the section there. So looking at just, this brake zone area, once again, I'll do a delta. So right there, I mean, that's half a second right there just in the braking. And just from, braking earlier there. And so let's take a look at the brake pressure. Brake pressure, you can see max we get on it about the same. I get on it and then drift off a little bit. Of course, later you kind of hold about the same pressure the entire time, which is how you end up going a lower speed, at a lower minimum speed. All right, so for this, I want to look a little bit at the video and talk about the angle entry into the corner. So I think it's more than just, oh, go faster. Like there's a little bit more than that. So if we look at both of these, once again, I'm on the right, you're on the left, and look at the brake position indicator. It should be brake pressure, I guess. And the, I don't know if it's 100% accurate. Like it says 100% on the meter, but it's it's still not scaled correctly. All right, so as I like slowly drag through this here, we'll take a look. So here at about, there's a 300 board. So what's this, 350 or something like that? You're on the brakes. I'm still on full throttle. Unfortunately, this throttle thing, like I said, once you lift off, it goes like full a million. So you can't really look at that too much unless it's like half throttle, then it's accurate. So scroll a little bit more, and then just trying to look at mine. So right here, I'm braking about, what's that, about 250. So about 100 feet later, and here's where about you lift off, maybe 125. Me, on the other hand, I'm actually lifting off like right before the curb here. Now, that's where I'm pressing a brake, but no, I want you to notice my angle of entry. So when I hit the brakes, I'm turning basically at the same time. So I'm almost like diving into the corner. So I'll take a look at that real quick. Just watch this side. I don't know if the audio came through, but I turn and brake at the same time. However, on your end, you're braking in a straight line, like most people normally would, and then you're turning kind of later, almost like turn one. And you're turning after the braking is accomplished. So this side, say brake off and then turn. So that's like the difference between where all that time is getting that braking done. Now the reason why I'm turning in and braking at the same time, I mean I'm turning in a little bit, but I'm also relatively keeping the car straight. That allows me to get a lot of braking done later. Like if I was turning really sharp and on the brakes, obviously I'd probably be spinning out. But I kind of turned the car in and then getting on the pressure. Actually, now that I say that, let me take a look at my brake pressure. Well, I guess my blue trace, I brake hard and then kind of trail off just a little bit. Whereas that's probably, see, you're probably getting more pressure, your red trace here, because you're in a straight line. I'm not in a straight line, so I have less pressure. Going through the bus stop, I would say your line is pretty much on point. You and I can match right up as far as the two left-handers and the right-hander coming out, not including the outer loop. So we'll watch this again over here on your side. So, line is fine. Really, it's just trusting how much grip you have. I can tell just by your steering. Like, how would I tell you that? How would you know if you have more grip, basically? How could you analyze yourself while you're on track? So, where this wheel becomes straight and you're no longer turning, there was some extra time there. And that is right at this point here. You actually shuffle your hand over, but right here, there's extra time there. Looking at my side. So my side, I'm still turning left, turning left, turning left, turning left. until I'm basically sliding up to this curb, and then once I hit the curb, I turn to the right. On your side, what I'm saying is you're turning left. Sorry, lag. Left, 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 and then you're kind of straight here. You're straight before you even get into this curve, and then you shuffle your hands and then turn right. So that little bit of gap, it's just a little bit, but it's a point where you're going straight and you were not utilizing as much grip that was available, if that makes sense. So watch right towards the end there again. I was looking at your side and looking at mine. Yeah, if you were to look at, if there was like a steering wheel angle sensor, mine would be left and then it would go straight to right. There'd be no middle there. So that's how you can gauge, oh, I had more grip to play with. I can go a little. Looking a little bit further into it, in our throttle traces, I see a little bit of a difference. So my blue trace only goes up, about this high right here, where your red trace is a little bit more, assuming that's full throttle, I guess. So me, I'm not even full throttle. I'm sort of modulating a little bit just to make it through that bus stop. And that's because I'm carrying so much speed, like I'm really at the maximum lateral grip. Where since you had slowed down, you basically, your brain's like, oh, I can go full throttle here. But in reality, you actually slowed down too much and wasn't carrying as much speed. So that's kind of another way you can tell that, oh, I have some more time there. If it's easy to go full throttle in a section where it's just carrying speed like that, then, oh, I'm not to the full car's potential yet. So it's a way to, self-analyze while you're driving. So you did get full throttle, you lifted a little bit, and then full throttle again, but that's coming out of the bus stop a little bit. Actually, we can go, yeah, about coming out on that curve there. And then here you actually hit the brake a little bit. So right about here, so you got the brake indicator on. Now, what's interesting is I used to do that same thing up until this event. After playing some high racing, I realized that that's actually slower um, because I was trying to get a good angle to get a lot of throttle on the exit, but it ended up actually being slower. Uh, Once again, it's kind of that U U-shaped trace versus V-shaped trace right here. So actually, it's really broad, but you can see the blue trace is this long U where right here you have sort of a V going on, a quicker one, right? And also, once again, looking at throttle, I kind of got on the gas a little bit towards that exit there, then heading into the outer loop. But I lift off and I kind of modulate or even almost all the way off for a little while. But I'm still carrying like, a high amount of speed. Then I slowly roll into it, more gas, and I'm pretty sure I'm full throttle here, but this is the way the trace shows. So this trace is like really sensitive. Your throttle trace, you broke, but then you got a lot of throttle in there, and then kind of started, well, I guess kind of modulating as well. Maybe you're just modulating a little more, but you're on more throttle. So once again, that more throttle shows that you had a little bit more grip available at the entry. But for this corner, top of fourth gear, it's all about just high average speed throughout the entire corner. You're not really worried about, oh, getting a real strong exit. All that time is just an overall delta average time you want to speed you want to keep up. I'll tell you, it wasn't like I just went out there and went, this speed, what's that, minimum 88 through outer loop. I slowly worked up to it. I think I was braking a little bit in the beginning, same as you were, and then I just slowly coasted, slowly just more throttle, and it's a fast quarter, so I just took it really easy, but I was I was almost never off throttle there. And maybe I was just a touch for a split second. Um, you just got to build up to that and trust how much grip you have. Don't go out there and try to, guns blazing right away. You have to build up to it. But the main takeaways I want you to get is how can you self-analyze while you're out there. And once again, that was like if your steering wheel is straight at some point, or it's easy to steer, whatnot, that's a spot you can gain time, or you can add some more speed. And then after you turn in, if it's easy to get on full throttle, well, maybe you could have had a little bit more corner speed there. So where it would have been, you would have had to been easy on the throttle. Um, that's how you're going to get faster is a self-analyzation while you're on track. Moving on to the next corner, which is laces. So we're coming out of the outer loop right here, going downhill brake zone, turning left, and continuing downhill towards the toe. We'll go ahead and take a look at video. You right here on the left, your fastest sector was on lap 14, and mine was on my 19, which I had a few fast sectors on that one. And that was also in my second stint. So once again, obviously a little faster because I was getting used to it. Here we go. All right, I didn't see too much there other than it looked like you were lifting early. I didn't really have too much of an issue with the line or anything like that. So we'll go ahead and look at data traces. So we'll start off again with the time compare. We'll do a little delta through this one section. And looks like, well, delta is almost a second, 0.985. And no real, huge like sign of, what it could be or whatnot down here in the time compare. It was just sort of very gradual. But obviously in the speed section here, you can tell there's this large discrepancy in speed. Coming into the corner, you didn't have as much speed coming from the outer loop, but you do start slowing down right around this point, where I'm slowing down right around here, and through the brake zones, significantly slower. I mean, to the point of 69 mile per hour versus 83, which is 14. So significantly slower. You can see how a half second would be lost throughout this whole section here. As we talked about before, the, the the style of the trace, you can see mine has this nice U shape going through that whole section where you kind of have this V thing going on, which I noticed, in quite a few corners. It's just one way to easily identify like where you could be missing some time at. One thing it doesn't show here because I took the RPM off, but I was in fifth gear to start with because I was carrying so much speed out of outer loop that I didn't want to bounce off the rev limiter in fourth gear, so I actually shift to fifth gear. During this, braking zone, I do go back into fourth gear. Unfortunately, the throttle trace is just too jagged to, really get any information from. I can kind of see on yours. Mine looks like I'm, you know, stomping a mud hole in somebody, but so we won't look at that. But based on the way the speed trace goes, it looks like there is like a little bit of lift, and then getting on the brake, slowly, or maybe even that's from just gradually pushing the brake down. And you can see I kind of do the same thing. I just do it just a touch later. Um, but I would say maybe you have a little bit more brake pressure in the beginning of the corner, where you see mine kind of trails off. So I trail brake quite a bit different. If we Let's say you let off the brake right here, so that's at say this point in the corner, and then if I lift off here, a little bit farther down there, 50 feet or something like that. So basically what I'm doing is you see I'm not slowing down as much. So I'm not pressing brake as hard and just trailing in, trying to keep that early corner speed up and carrying that throughout the corner. Now, like we talked about in turn one, you see how you broke a lot and then got on the gas hard, and your trace actually catches up. But that whole void right here is where, you're losing most of this time. All right, so I went back and looked at the video again. I see a slight little difference. I mean, it's very slight, but I think your entry into the corner is a little bit wider. So I'm trying to find if I can see that. It's really subtle. So like right about here, it's hard to tell, but based on where that curb is and like the flagtronics, I'm a little bit tighter right here, where you're just a touch out. You're probably like 2 or 3 feet, if that, farther to the right. So you're like starting farther right and then sweeping back in. That particular line is one reason why you need to go extra slower, because you're asking more from the steering wheel. Like you're trying to turn sharper. So I'm gonna try to look at this again. So if you look at mine, you can see I kind of very smoothly turn in, maybe even a little earlier, but then I just hold that line tighter. Oops, sorry, I hold that line tighter. And then if we look at your side, it feels like you start out farther to the right and then cut it back later to the left. And then coming out the exit of the corner, it's really easy for you to straighten the wheel up, right? So once again, you got to the point where you could straighten the wheel. What that means, that tells you is, oh, there was more speed there. So you can either continue with the same line and get on the throttle sooner, or you can carry more speed in the entry and therefore you'll, slide farther out at the exit. It all depends on the corner. Since these corners are fast and you want that U-shaped trace, you generally want more speed going into the corner. So taking a look at the exit, see how soon you straighten the wheel out. I mean, it looks like very easy, no stress, which is fine. This track is dangerous, so you got to be careful. Let's take a look at what am I doing over here? Yeah, I was not even straight until I'm like on the curb, and then finally I can straighten the wheel out, right? Actually, about right there. So that's one way when you're driving is how you can analyze where can you gain some time. Moving on to toe of the boot. All right, coming out of laces right here, downhill braking zone, then turn and hit an uphill somewhere in this area, which affords you more grip than it looks like visually. And coming uphill, cresting, or I mean uphill here, cresting somewhere around here, and onto the. All right, let's take a look at the video. So, your best sector, lap 14. Mine, once again, was 19. Here on the left, I'm on the right. Okay, right off the bat, I can see that you kind of do a late apex, late turn in here. So we'll go, you can kind of see here, I can still see the curve on the camera where, you're farther out to the left doing a sharper cut back towards the apex. Yeah, you can see on my side, I'm right up on the curb, and then you finally get over to the curb. Yeah, which is nothing wrong. That's like a safe line, right? But it is, you are losing some speed. Let me take a look at your hands again coming out. Actually, look at going in. Oh, hard to tell. Well, oh, actually, that's pretty good right here. Notice the tape on the wheel. See how far to the right it is? Mine's just a little bit up, so you can see you're turning sharper initially. Of course, one thing you notice is you did your downshift early. I do mine in the middle of the corner. Not my favorite thing to do, but what I'm trying to do is very delicately brake the way I want to into the corner, and I can't do that and heel toe at the same time while finessing the brake, right? Um, Now I want to see coming on the exit how you straighten the wheel up. I mean, looked like you just kind of relatively easily open the wheel. Oops, forgot video was playing. Looks like it was easy to open up the wheel, just by video. Let me see if mine looks any different. Kind of similar, but I have the wheel turned all the way until, I get to the grass there. Or I think maybe you kind of straighten it up just before there. All right, let's go take a look at the data analysis here. Oop, gotta fix something. I had to fix the time compare graph. All right, so let's take a look at the delta again. Let's see what the difference is in that one corner. And delta 0.54, so half a second in this one corner here. Get rid of that. So once again, I'm gonna move. You can't see it. I'm gonna move it some out of the way. Um, yeah, pretty, pretty smooth throughout. There's this little gap or little downfall right here. It's hard to see because of the scaling right now, but this is where the significant amount of the time loss is. Actually, if I do a delta in this one section, oh, recording icon's in the way. Actually, point 6 right there, a little over half a second. So you can see the way that late apexing works is that you actually started gaining time uh, throughout the straightaway. Actually, I can do a delta on that. Yeah, you're about a tenth. That makes sense. A tenth faster from here, on the gas basically to here, but lost all that time in the beginning. So once again, it's a fast track. Um, I got the U shape trace going on. Yours is kind of more of a V, a very sharp angle right here, and that's because you had to slow down more to turn sharper, as we looked at in the video. But in order to turn sharper, you can see you applied a lot more brake pressure and earlier on compared to me. On my blue trace, you can see I get on the brakes, but then I just, not as hard, but I just hold it for a while and let the car gradually slow down. Well, that's where I'm gaining that speed is, or that's time rather, is in that braking and corner entry area right there. That's where the magic is. Other than that, pretty a straightforward corner. The big thing to understand actually about the corner is that, which I talked about in the other video, is so when the track goes up here, you naturally are getting more grip because it's almost like downforce. You're getting pressure into the track. So what you do is you want to take advantage of it. So that's kind of what I'm doing. That's why I'm able to carry more speed in there is because I'm trusting that I'm going to get more grip than I would, say if it was a flat corner. But yeah, like I said, pretty much straightforward corner. This is one thing on the aim that you'd be looking for. If you feel like you start to feel or get a feel that you're braking too much and turning too late and slowing down too much, the next lap you go in and, "Oh, let me carry a little bit more speed in." And then as you're coming out of the corner, look down at that predictable timer or the lights and see if you're going faster, and slowly work your way up and carry more speed until obviously you're going too fast and you have to basically lift at the exit to not go off the track. Then you've reached uh that the speed you can go. Onto the heel of the boot. This section, another downhill braking zone. Turn in still falls away, and when you come at the exit, actually past the exit, you finally start going uphill again. Generally, most cars understeer here because you're falling down while turning in. This corner for me has probably been one of the most difficult to get right. It never feels right, no matter what car. The TATR car actually felt the best out of any I've driven. So let's go ahead and look at the video. This time your best sector was on lap 13. Mine was in 19. Actually, I think some of the other sectors I messed up. I've had some better sectors, but anyway, 19 on this one. Let's go ahead and watch them side by side. All right, so that's the first time I watched it. I guess maybe you got some extra motivation from the S2000 there. Didn't see anything right off the bat. Actually, I was looking at the S2000. I think it might be another case of just turning in late, later than I was. I mean, right here you can kind of see, you see how much of the curb, I mean, it comes all the way past the windshield. Yours is kind of on the fogger strip there. I do see you counter steering a little bit on the exit, so maybe you're pushing it on this one. Maybe a little bit. It still did, it looked like you opened up the wheel a little sooner. Let me take a look at mine. Yeah, so you see, I still have the wheel turned. I don't start opening the wheel until I'm on the curb, basically here. There, I'm straight. So let's take a look at the data. And 1 second. We'll fix it. Keeps wanting to change the reference lap every time I move laps. So let's look at the delta in this section right here. So we got 3.5 tenths difference. So yeah, this one's one of your better corners, it looks like. Um, Basically, it looks like it's hard to see it. I can see the pixels on my screen, but this section right here is where it looks like the most time is lost. If I do a delta on that little spot, only 3 tenths, so half a tenth in the whole rest of this thing. Um, but now looking at the speed trace, you can see this gap right here. Uh, it looks like your braking is relatively similar to mine. Maybe a touch slower. It says 2 miles per hour, slower, 1 mile per hour. So pretty close. Your braking, looks like you get on it pretty good and then lift immediately where I brake kind of harder initially. Looks like I fluctuate a little bit, but then I slowly bleed it off. So once again, I'm trail braking. I'm especially doing that in this corner to try to get it to rotate. Getting that rotation allows me to like keep some of the speed up. Um, if you without it, it understeers a little bit, then you have to go slower, which is kind of probably half of the reason you're uh, fighting the speed here. Um, your lowest speed 66, where my lowest speed is a lot farther away, and it's 64. Did I read that right? I'm looking at the wrong one. Sorry. Your lowest speed is 62. Mine was 64. But the difference was I carried, a higher average speed through this section. So really it's just about, you hit the brakes pretty good, but then you could have started turning and trail braking a little bit sooner. And that's really pretty much it. It's sort of the same thing again. Just when you're on track, self-analyzation, how was your exit? Was it easy? I opened up the wheel earlier. Well, I could probably carry more speed and, you know, in the middle of the corner, keep my average speed higher. One other thing I'll add, and the GPS positioning is not always the best with AIM. In this case, it looks kind of similar. Uh, the the graphics or the satellite view is more or less just a suggestion. A lot of times, you'll be on the straightaway, like in the dirt, which is not right. But when it compares both traces next to each other, sometimes you can kind of see something. So you can see how your red trace going this direction is a little bit farther left initially than mine. I cut in earlier and then and much wider, which also goes back to that U-shaped philosophy I talked about earlier. So then I carry more speed out and end up, of course, having to go farther out. Now on the video, I was over the curve, but the satellite view, it doesn't say that. But you can kind of use this to compare two traces together. To turn 9, which is also the turn that goes back on to the NASCAR straight or NASCAR track. So coming out of the hill right here, coming uphill, braking, then it cresting, flattens out, and then you got this flat exit out to the wall and down the straightaway. Going to the video, switched up a little bit because of the way AIM does it based on time of day. So my best lap was 38 on my first stint. So I never got faster in the second stint. And your best was 13 once again. Once again, following the S2000. I guess you're like you like to chase the rabbit. Makes you go faster. All right, let's watch. All right, not sure why my video stopped there at the end, but I was watching your side, and honestly, it looked pretty good. It looked like you did carry speed in. On the exit, I could see that you didn't track out all the way, which is a sign that you could have carried more speed overall. Take a look. Yeah. So let's take a look at the data. All right. First things first, the delta. Go ahead and hit this real quick. So, wow, I'm actually surprised. It still says I'm half second quicker through that section. And based on, looks like the most of it is once again right here in the corner entry. So 3.5 tenths just in that section right there. Oh, graph moved a little. Yeah, once again, it was still kind of the same thing going on. My trace got that nice smooth U shape where you kind of slow down earlier, get a sharper turn in. I mean, on the video, it was hard to see that. I would not have guessed it would have been like this, but that is data. Um, so let's see, let's take a look at the braking. So braking, earlier, once again, harder. It does seem that your braking is, hard initially, you hold the pressure, and then you let off pretty quickly. That is in several of the corners. I brake a little later, about the same pressure, but then I trail it off as I go into the corner. And I really think that is the key thing for you to start, looking at. Trail braking in. You don't always have to get all the braking done immediately, right? And that just takes comfort with being able to have the car is sliding a little bit in, a little unsettled. Let's check out the lowest speed, 57 for you. A little bit later in the corner, I'm down to 59. So very close minimal speed. It's just, it can be, later in the corner, right? Well, once again, this is one of the ones where, I was in fourth gear and I downshift really late. And you'll see I do that, which is not, I don't like doing it, but this track kind of breeds that. I do that just so I can do this nice, smooth, braking transition. I figure it's worth gaining this time, even if I spend just a little extra time downshifting in the middle. And you can take a look at the video and see. So you shifted right there, and yeah, I shifted right there, which is pretty wild. I'm kind of curious if I just rev matched. I didn't even heel toe. Oh God, this throttle trace um, that was right there. Yeah, I can't even tell what was going on there, but same thing again as the other ones. Um, more speed in. If the exit is really easy, you're opening up the wheel early. That's your sign. Oh, I can carry a little bit more speed in. And let's move on to the next sector. And on to turn 10. This super fast left-hander, banked a little bit. Coming on this straight, turning left, and then onto the straight before the last corner. Let's go ahead and look at the video. Oh, sorry, I forgot to talk. So your lap was on a lap 11. Mine was in my second stint on lap 14. And here we go. So yours looked pretty good. However, there's one thing that I figured out during the race, and it was because of the aim timer, is where to actually lift. So you were lifting a little bit before the corner. Um, I figured out if you lift like right towards the apex, I guess maybe because of the banking, you actually get a little bit more rotation and it like hooks up better. So I started doing that. It almost looks like I go full throttle the whole time, but I'm pretty sure I did lift a little bit. So we'll look at yours again. Watch your throttle trace, I mean your throttle graph before the corner. Yeah, see right here is like where you're lifting. I don't lift until like maybe right here or so. And I could carry so much more speed because it rotated just the right way. It seemed like lifting here because it's flatter, the front didn't get as much grip to like dive in, I guess you could say. But I think that was kind of like a secret I figured out uh, during the stint or during the race weekend. All right, let's look at some data. All right, so we'll start off with I'll leave it like that. I actually go this way. Okay, so we'll start off with the delta. Um, oh, sorry, my little guy was on the wrong side. Actually, I'm on the wrong side. Okay, fixed. All right, delta right there, and 4/10 of a second time loss, and take the delta off. It's kind of gradual. Maybe from here on, it's a little bit of a steeper time loss, and I guess actually, judging off the speed right here, you can see where that's at. So it looks like coming in very similar, 2 miles an hour off, probably just from the exit of turn 9. But yeah, so the throttle trace I can kind of understand a little better on this one. So right here, your red trace, start to lift off, which is what we saw in the video. This whole thing where it jumps up, it's like zero throttle. And then you start to get back into it, kind of modulate a little bit maybe, and then, full throttle over here. You can see my trace pretty much, well, I guess, I don't know, I don't lift too much at all. I'm pretty sure right here I lifted a little bit because it does say I lost a little bit of speed. And that is, let's see, if it was right here in the video, yeah, right about where I said, like right about the apex of that corner is where I would lift a little bit. So it's hard to tell you, like, how can you figure that out? It was all looking at the predictable timer, like, is how I figured that out. I just try to keep carrying more speed and seeing what would happen. Is it quicker? And, it comes out saying I'm up 2/10. Well, hey, there it is right there. So, um, pretty straightforward corner with a little secret in it. Final corner, turn 11. So coming down to this brake zone. Um, you can turn a lot earlier than you're really expecting. You do get a little bit of banking, and then of course drive out to the wall, down to the front straight. This particular sector, can't figure out how to do it yet, but really it should end up here at the braking zone for turn one. But regardless, we can still analyze it, so it's fine. All right, we'll go on to the video. All right, your lap was 13 in your stint. Mine was 12 in my second stint. You're on the left, I'm on the right, and here we go. All right, so once again, your line looked pretty good through there, right off the rip there. So, one thing I did notice was coming out, and then track out all the way to the wall, which is fine. But we'll take a look at your hands again. See how soon you open the wheel up. Actually, not too bad. It looked nice and smooth. Um, but because you weren't coming out to the wall, probably some time there. Actually, just looking at the mile per hour, it's like 2 miles per hour off right here. All right, let's take a look at the data. Um, the one thing that's kind of interesting is it's a little bit different. You notice how the blue line is above your red line. That's most likely because on that lap or something, well, like it might have been a yellow or something that you were ahead of me, whatnot. But it's still the same regardless. So um, the, the blue, oh man, I did it again. The blue line going down represents like more time gained. So the difference here is point seven, oops, point seven, I mean 0.579. It's a little over half a second, and it looks like just a general loss of time. Kind of smooths out towards here, but once again, this section right here, so we lost some time. Um, it looks like coming out of turn 10, you didn't have really a lot of speed, so it's hard to gauge here. I mean, if you just count that one corner, I mean, one exit, I mean, that's a tenth right there. So there's still 4/10 out there in the rest of the sector. Um, I mean, once again, similar thing. It does look like you were close to carrying a similar amount of speed in, but slowed down too much overall. So the your minimum speed here was 72, where mine was 82, so 10 miles per hour difference. In some of those other corners, minimum speed was similar. It was just that mine was later in the corner. This one, it was definitely just overall speed. That's why, the line looked good on the video, because our traces are kind of similar in timing, but your overall speed is just a little bit slower. Um, Once again, the U-shaped philosophy, uh, you can see mine's kind of nice and smooth U, where you have more of a V. Of course, that V allows your speed to eventually catch up. Actually, at one point, we're both doing 100 at the same time, and even down here, oh, actually, there must have been different shift points, but down here we're carrying the same amount of speed. So you're able to catch up by getting on the throttle probably, a little bit sooner, but still it's not overall like quicker, right? I mean, in all honesty, that corner is pretty much just like how much balls are you willing to risk? You know, on the braking, you can see I only broke so much, 879 pounds of pressure. You got on the brakes a little bit later, but a little bit more. Thus, that's why your speed, was a little lower. So, once again, I think we're seeing a simple trend here. I try not to give people too many things to work on. Obviously, the biggest thing it looks like is carrying speed into a corner, um, analyzing yourself whether there's more time there or not. That's going to be judging your wheel usage on the exit, how much you're turning, how close were you to running off the track per se, and also looking at the aim and, you know, if you take a corner a little bit differently, take a scan down, figure out if that's quicker or slower or whatnot, and then go from there. All right, so just something quick about the entire lap. Currently, what you see here is my best lap and your best lap. But obviously, with traffic, you can't just go off of whatever's in my race monitor or whatever, because here clearly you can see you lifted for something. I mean, right here you're like really slow, probably people in front of you, and then something going on over here too. So definitely you lost a bunch of time. Um, the way I have my sectors set up though, it's a pretty accurate prediction of if you took each one your best way. Um, this whole chart is a lot of stuff here, but I can kind of narrow down, um, what our best theoreticals would be. So right here, best theoretical, it takes each one of those sectors and puts them all together, and they're pretty much achievable for the most part, each way. No matter how you exit another corner, uh, or exit a corner, it'll give you, how do I want to say this? It's repeatable. I'll get it out. It's repeatable where you could get close to this. So my best theoretical was 212 flat, and then your best theoretical was basically 218 flat. So, 6 seconds slower. If you added up all those different sectors, it might be probably about what it is. However, your best lap was a 220. Mine was 213, so that's like seven. There's more change there. 7.5 seconds slower on race monitor, but that's not really the case, especially when you only had, I think 15 laps. That was the lap you pitted in. So as you improve and you knock, a few tenths off of each sector, you're going to see that gap like slowly come down, and as you get closer and closer and faster, and then that's where it gets really crazy and nitpicky on, every single inch of where you're at on track and every, zero point 0.1 miles per hour. So yeah, that's it. I guess the rest I'll just text you if you got this far, and we can talk about it later or FaceTime and delve further into the data. Have a good one. See you.